Hello, welcome to Good Games Well Played, episode 141. I'm Clint, aka JCM. With us this week is Messiah.
Hello.
And as you can probably tell by my voice, I lost it a little bit just from a lingering cough that's been going on like all week long.
Oh no.
Kind of annoying. Yeah, I fully lost it on Friday. As the day goes on, it comes back, but we record in the morning. So, but yeah, I was like, man, am I going to be good enough to talk on the podcast? But as long as I'm
You'll
not
talk
getting
on the
too excited.
podcast, but not after.
That's right. It'll be like, I'll get done. I'll be like, all right. But,
okay, bye everybody.
Yeah. Isley's out of town. He's in London, so he will not be here to speak to anything. So the Game Awards was the big thing this week. We'll kind of go over that, just a quick recap, and there's a lot of stuff so announced. We're not going to cover everything that was announced. Kind of this was things that kind of stood out to us. Things were interesting because, again, there was just kind of a hodgepodge of announcements. But before we get into that, of course, this week we saw the announcement trailer for GTA 6, which I guess had leaked like a couple hours prior, which I had no idea.
Of course it did.
Yeah, and then the trailer came out, and the trailer's just like, the engine looks good. It's like, but a lot of engines can look good at 30 FPS, and it's a lot of like highlight clips, like IRL social media posts. Like you can see all the reference material and like side by side comparisons on multiple YouTube channels. So nothing really about like the game. Like you see the two main characters, like okay, but not too much there. A lot of people like super excited and like over analyzing the trailer, but I just like, okay, it's a trailer. We'll see, because like 2025, I think they said is when it's going to come out. So I'm like, I'm not interested until we get there.
Right.
But yeah, and we talked about this last week. Like I enjoyed Red Dead 2, but that game was like the slowest of burns. And then I like the original Red Dead, and then I played GTA 4, but I only got it because it was like it was out, and I'm like, I guess I'll grab it, and I played it, and I had a good time playing it, but it wasn't like the next coming of Christ or something for me. And then GTA 5 is kind of the same way. I was like, well, I'll play it because it's the big thing, and at that point we had the podcast. So I'm like, okay, well, I need to use the old one. Need to get some opinions on it to talk about it, yada yada. So I'll play it, and I played it, and it was fine. It's obviously a really good game, just not really my cup of tea, but I did enjoy it. But I have like no interest in the game right now until it releases, and then like we'll see what the gaming landscape looks like around then.
When all of the hype was coming out and people were like, "Oh, it's coming, I was like, "Oh, that's really interesting. That's really exciting. It's been a really long time." And then I realized I don't care about GTA. I never played 5. I played the multiplayer for maybe 3 hours with Flash one day.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, this is pretty fun multiplayer. If I had like a group of friends that was playing this, I can understand why it's like popular on YouTube and Twitch and stuff like that. But I was just like, I don't care. I don't care about the story. Like, that's not to say like it's not a good game and it's not going to be like good and interesting and stuff like that. It's just like not. I just want to go into the world and take cars and run around and do stupid crap, and that's like maybe a few hours of fun for me alone. So I was just like, yeah, I'm glad people are excited about it, but it's just I don't care.
Yeah, it's kind of like for me, people that are like have no interest in like Baldur's Gate 3, or I'm like the opposite of the people that don't care about any Ubisoft open world games. But then I'm I'm kind of that way about GTA. I'm like, it's like, yeah, it's there. Like I'm sure if I played it, I'd enjoy it. I just have I am not like, chomping at the bit to play this game. It's just
right.
Yeah, it's like I'm sure it'll be good, and I'm sure I'll if I do end up playing it, it'll be a fun time. But it's like it doesn't have a PC release date, of course, because that's the standard case for Rockstar games. So we'll see how. I'll be curious to see how console performance is and how good because it looks good, but that's like in engine. It's like, okay, but show me some actual like gameplay. I'll be curious to see what that looks like. But yeah, anyways, so that was announced officially, and then aside from that, there was an article that you can read. IGN reported on it, but I believe it was from a different reported on by a different website. I'm just trying to see here. It doesn't say, but it basically was about the working conditions at Bungie and how all the devs, like the atmosphere there is like soul crushing, and they're all concerned, of course, because there's been layoffs and cuts and a lot of just, stuff you don't want to see as an employee of a company, where like a lot of incentives were gone. They're not doing these weekly things anymore. They're doing them now monthly. They've kind of cut back on the lunches and whatnot, which like I get it from like a cost cutting measure, but it's like that's kind of the wrong place to start. And then there's like concerns over a Sony takeover, which I guess if part of the negotiations was like, hey, you can remain independent as long as you're meeting a revenue threshold, which is pretty standard, because if you acquire a company because usually they're masters in their field or they have something that you currently don't within your catalog. And it's like, if they're performing well, it's like, okay, we're good. And then it's like, all right, if they're not, how much of your other outside resources do you allocate to them? In this case, they're independents. It's like, you're probably not a whole lot versus like someone in the proper first party family at Sony. But yeah, so I'm curious what's going to happen there. But yeah, that's got to suck to be like, because I know what that's like when, a bunch of people get fired, for just quietly one day. It's like you just lose like a whole group of people. No one gives you any updates, and you're like wondering, like, all right, and like, oh, we got to right the ship and do all this, and you got like that corporate speak, and you're like, okay, yeah, sure.
Especially when you start seeing like very quiet cuts around other places. Like, at least be transparent about it. Be like, hey, we're gonna cut these services, or we're gonna cut these perks in order to keep as many people on board as possible, like, kind of thing. And I'm sure people would be totally fine with that, but also at the same time they'd be like, why don't you cut the CEO's bottom line, maybe?
Yeah,
So, that's
right. That, I think they mentioned that too, like at one point, like they, in the article, bringing up like, hey, what about pay cuts for the higher ups, but that was like they're kind of like shot down and just kind of like, shut up,
yeah,
don't ask
of
that
course.
question. But yeah, it's got to be rough there. And like we talked about, the final shape being delayed, it's got to be even, the morale hit is probably even tougher, knowing that, yeah, if this doesn't do well, then we could see more cuts or a complete takeover from Sony based, again, this is if it's based on the contractual agreements of the partnership, but it's rough. We also got the Alone in the Dark reboot. It's been delayed once again by over 2 months. It's now delayed from January 16th, which is unfortunate. I felt like that would have been a really nice month for it to come out, to March 20th. They did this to avoid crunch, so that's a good reason. You always want to avoid crunch, but I am kind of looking forward to that game. So hopefully they can get it done without overworking themselves and having to delay again. Because I feel like that game definitely needs to kind of release around stuff that, I mean, there's not much that we know about that's got solid release dates for next year, except a couple things that were at the Game Awards.
Yeah.
So I feel like they still could be in an okay position. But yeah, if anybody else like moves into a spot near them that's bigger, it could be tough. But we got the news that The Last of Us Season 2 will debut in 2025 officially. No time frame within 2025. A lot of rumors on the Abby casting, but we won't speak to that until it's official. I know, because I'm curious, like, whoever they get, like, I'm wondering, like, are they going to have them bulk up for the role? I'm like, because I feel like they would need to. Like, it's not like, in Hollywood, and like, oh, we just want, the leading man to be sexy in a t-shirtless scenes. So you gotta kind of work out and be in shape. It's like, it doesn't really matter to the character. I mean, even superhero films like Vera costumes, like, just pad the costume. But and this, I'm like, that's Abby's motivation, is revenge. That's what puts her on that, from where she is at the end of the first game, when you see her, like, to where she gets to, like, it's all like, I gotta become the monster to destroy this monster. And so it's like, I feel like if you cast someone, like, I feel like they need to get up and, like, hopefully pretty big. I know Hollywood is, kind of apprehensive about that, but hopefully Neil and Craig Mazin know that, like, now you need someone who looks physically imposing if they, put on that weight.
I feel like it has to be done sheerly out of spite at this point too, because that was like the whole stupid controversy around Abby of like, oh, women don't look like that, da, 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 da. So they need to get like a really hot actress and just have her absolutely bulk out and be like, see, you stupid incels, this is what happens when people exercise.
Yeah, a lot of people at the time I follow who were started their fitness journey and around that time were like showing pictures like, look, you can do it. And then like they'd cosplay Abby and whatnot. It was always really funny. But yeah, it's like, and the thing too, the benefit is like, not the benefit, but if they have it in 2025, which is far enough out that they're probably like in pre-planning, depending on when they start shooting, like if the person that they cast has never worked out proper, like you got those newbie gains that you could just stack on super fast. And like you can make a lot of progress in a short time just by sticking to a good routine, eating well and doing everything proper. So I feel like they could do it and do enough to where it's like, okay, within the time constraints you have without, other Hollywood like special sauce, like you could do it naturally just fine and get it done. But that's a lot. You better pay them. That's a lot of dedication. And then other bit, I'm trying to see if there's anything else that's not related to the Game Awards before I get into it. Yeah, apparently Assassin's Creed Mirage getting a new game plus next week. But the permadeath mode's delayed 2024. I'm like, I didn't even realize it was people were wanting a new game plus.
It's not long enough to warrant a new game plus, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
It's not like you spend, dozens and dozens of hours sinking all of these upgrades into a character. Like the skill tree is pretty limited. So yeah. I don't know. Yeah, just start a new game. It's okay.
Yeah, I guess it would be fun in, with some of the stuff you unlock later to have it earlier on in some of the early missions where it's like, okay, this, because of that old school, like here's the arena you have to, work with. It's like, oh, now you get to redo that, but with all the tools you've unlocked and, abilities, again, it could change your approach to, because when you first play, you have no idea what you're kind of going to unlock. Like you have a general idea, because some of the skills they have are there, but it's like how it's going to actually play out when you use them. It could be like, oh man, it would have been fun if I had this, when I was doing that mission, early in the game. That can always be fun. But yeah, I can't imagine. True. I can't imagine the game that kind of warrants itself to be like, you know what, I want to play that one again. But who knows? But yeah, we can go ahead and move on to the Game Awards. We'll go ahead and start with the all the categories. I saw someone say like, the show was like 3.5 hours, including the pre-show, which had stuff in it. And like, there was only like 49 minutes to the actual awards. I'm like, yeah, but can I get a further breakdown? Like, does that count? Like when someone goes, all right, up next is, so-and-so to present this award. So is that counting the person who comes out to read the card, present the award, show the clips on the screen, go back to the person, then to read it, the winners to walk up to the stage, talk, get off the stage? I'm like, because I want to know, like, how much time was allocated to the actual talking? Like, if 49 minutes was for the awards, how much of that was given to letting people talk? Because it's like, there were a lot of awards that were just given, off screen. A lot of them early stuff, like, we don't care about the most anticipated games, like a whatever, all the esports nonsense, the content creators, like, okay, whatever. But then they have like the best action game going to Armored Core 6. I'm like, were they just not able to make it? Anybody from to receive on their behalf? Is that why you put it to the side? Because like even the one team that won for who was it? I'm trying to go through here. Sorry, was it best? Yeah, it was best indie game for Sea of Stars. So wasn't it where Shuhei Yoshida came out and like accepted on their behalf? Was that the one? And I'm like, you couldn't have done that.
No, indie game was done like, indie game was done off screen or whatever. It was like best music and best indie game were done back to back, and it's like,
because Games for Impact was there because it was Chia. Yeah, because one of them, Shuhei Yoshida, came up and did it. And I thought it was for, because ongoing game was one that they went up on stage, was weird. I'm like, okay. Best indie game was Sea of Stars. Best debut indie was Cocoon, but I think the Cocoon devs were actually there, because because I ended up watching it later, I kind of just skipped through some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, who's winning? Okay, skip to the speech, go to the end. Now it's a bunch of ads, yada yada. But I thought one of them was he came up and accepted for them, and I'm like, hey, you couldn't do that for From Software? Like, they won.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was just so weird. Yeah, because Best Action Adventure went to Legend of Zelda, and they went up and accepted. But yeah, even then, same for Best Fighting Game. Like, Best Fighting Game was a sideline one. I was like, that's so weird. Like, okay, I went to Street Fighter 6. Like, you can't. Was no one from the studio able to go up there? Like, if Mortal Kombat 1 had got it, it's like if he knew, like, Ed Boon was there because he presented an award. But yeah, it's like, it's just so weird, some of these. And I guess that's what it must just come down to, is who was able to RSVP. Because, it's got to be like, okay, we're going to fly someone out to, like, look at Nintendo guy that one time. It's like they flew out the one guy because everybody else was, doing whatever, busy. So it's like, okay, we'll just have like one representative go out. But like, yeah, no one was able to come out for that, unless maybe they thought they weren't going to win or something. But
see, that's what I thought about too. It's like, oh, well, these categories are getting sidelined maybe because they just couldn't get anybody to come over and accept it. Like, I know in the case of Final Fantasy 16, like winning, spoilers for later on, I guess, winning Best Music, the obvious choice is to have Masayoshi Soken go up and accept the award. But I know that he's probably extremely busy preparing for not only Dawn Trail, but Japan Fan Fest. So it's like, that makes sense. But also at the same time, like, you know ahead of time who the winners are. So it's like, even if it's a last minute thing, get in contact with Square Enix and be like, hey, your game has won this award. Do you want to record like a short message,
right,
if you can't be here, or just something to let them like have that moment of acknowledgement? Shit, Ben Starr was there. Have him go up and accept it. Like,
yeah, because it's also like, again, and we'll talk about this again with the kind of award spoilers. But when you sideline it, if any of that studio is there in that category, it's kind of like, oh, well, clearly, if this case, and it feels very much like this is the case of they're not there and they don't have a video because, like you said, they didn't ask them for one or whatever, is that then everybody else kind of knows, like, oh, they're not going to win because you just sidelined the only category or one of the categories we were in, perhaps. Unless, and then kind of cutting to Best RPG going to Baldur's Gate as a sideline thing. It's like, okay, to me, that immediately meant they're winning Game of the Year. Because, or at least one of the, maybe not direction, but like one of the other things, one of the big categories, like, it has to be Game of the Year. And it's like, because they did this to It Takes Two, they sidelined that to Best Family Game. I was like, you didn't let Joseph Ferris go up there and talk? I was so mad. And then they let him talk. I'm like, okay, this is part of your planning. So it's like, if they're there, not having them accept the award is kind of a spoiler. You know what's going to come, because it would be a total dick move if they didn't win and you didn't let them accept the award for Best RPG. So it's just like, yeah, if you're sitting in the crowd and it's like, oh, best, this, and it's like, all right, and it's like, and it goes to this people. It's like, okay, well, clearly I wasn't going to win because you just put it in just read off a script there, Keely. But and I don't know how you avoid that, because they got to change it somehow. Because I feel like this is now the trend, so I don't know how you shake it up in the future. Because even in other shows, well, other shows are purely award shows, so they do every category.
Yeah.
Unlike the Game Awards. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, going on to some of the other ones. Best score went to FF16, like you said. Art direction went to Alan Wake 2. Best narrative went to Alan Wake 2. Game direction went to Alan Wake 2. And the Game of the Year went to Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 also won Best Multiplayer, which I thought was really weird. Only because I don't know if I would consider that the best. I'm kind of looking at the list. I'm like, is it the best multiplayer game, though? Like, I'm sure it's a fun. I don't know if it's the best. Like, I had a lot of fun playing Diablo 4 multiplayer, even though I kind of fell off Diablo 4 hard. I never actually finished it. But, like, I feel like that's a easier to manage multiplayer experience than, like, I'm sure Baldur's Gate 3 would be extremely fun. Like, I've played Divinity multiplayer, and that's very fun. But I'm like, the best multiplayer game? I'm like, I don't know, but
maybe just because it's like, it's an easy drop in, drop out kind of thing. Like you can have somebody just who's never played a game like this before just drop in and be like, here's a character, just, you know, I'm going to walk you through it kind of thing. Or just like do whatever you feel like doing kind
Yeah,
of
I
thing. You
guess.
don't necessarily need to be like, have your own character and party up and have like a group and stuff like that.
Yeah, they can just control whoever is in your group. Whereas, like, yeah, Diablo, you need to have a character. You have to have leveled up if you're going to party together and whatnot. Street Fighter 6 is obviously a very technical fighting game, and then Mario Brothers Wonder isn't good at 4-player, so maybe it's like, okay, not that one. But yeah, I don't know. That was a weird one. But yeah, I was trying to see if there's any other awards that, like we said, Action Adventure went to Legend of Zelda. It was interesting that Best VR AR went to Resident Evil Village, which I think just came out. Or
Pretty recent, yeah.
yeah, it's like super close. Like not that I expected like Horizon Call of the Mountain to get it, or like Synapse. I thought like maybe I've heard great things about Gran Turismo 7. I don't think enough people actually played like Synapse, because so many times I listen to podcasts and they forget, like, David Hayter and Jennifer Hale are in that game. Like I don't think anybody played it. Like I just forgot about it, because still not many people in game news plays VR, or at least really kind of plays a lot of it. Like maybe they have one headset, but that still means they're cut out of an ecosystem of another one. So, or they move, they don't have the space anymore to really like use it properly, and yada yada and this and that. So that's a weird category. But yeah, those are all the kind of big winners. It was nice to see the Alan Wake 2 performance, though I knew like whoever didn't play this game has no idea what's going on here.
I can confirm I did not play that game and I have no idea what was going on.
When I first watched it, I thought like, oh, Mr. Door and the voice actor for Alan Wake, I'm like, it sounds like they're just lip syncing. I was like, because it sounds like that. I've heard that song so much because I've watched so many reaction videos to that part of the game. And I was like, it sounds exactly like the track. But then on a couple repeat viewings, because I watched some reactions to the show, I was like, you know what? There are some parts where Mr. Door sounds slightly different, and they aren't moving when they're singing, so they're not exerting themselves and being exhausted like the the old gods of Asgard, where they're playing their instruments. So you could tell it's live because it's not a perfect track, and whatnot in a studio. But yeah, it was like, so I can't tell, like, okay, did they sing it live, or or was there backing tracks? Not that it matters. It's not like a concert, so who cares? In production wise, it would be, especially because it's probably been years since I'm totally blank on the actor who plays Mr. Door, who was supposed to be, I guess, Lance Reddick back in the day, which I had no idea. Like, it was after the game came out, I found out like, oh, that character of Mr. Door was supposed to be him, and I was like, man, that would have been awesome to see him do that musical number. But yeah, like I can't imagine, like, I'm sure he did that like way back in the day, like probably sang the song, right? So it's like, I doubt he's committed it to memory, and obviously he could do a rehearsal and probably have like the words up on a prompter maybe, but I'm like, it's probably just easier just to give them the backing track and they can just, lip sync to it. Who cares?
Right.
They're doing the dancing later on, so it's like, all right. And then I love that I was like, man, I was like, there's no Sam Lake. He's not there, because in the game you see him earlier. He does show up later on in like the big group stuff. I'm like, so it was nice to see Sam Lake come out and actually do the dancing. That song is funny because like the way it's constructed for the game, there's segments between each of the major beats, where the player has to like do stuff. So it's like, okay, but I like the song with those little gameplay interstitials better than if you were to take them out as if the player just teleported from the next spot to next spot. And it's still a good song, and I still really like listening to it without those. But I do like some of those, even if it's only like 30 seconds of that interstitial. I feel like that's part of the song, right? It's like, and yeah, if the player just stands still, it loops. But I'm like, I still like the way it kind of leads into the next bit. I feel like it flows better. But yeah, it was really fun to see that perform live. But yeah, we can go ahead and move on to the announcements. Now, again, we won't be covering everything that was announced. There was a lot of stuff. We'll kind of just cover the things that were interested to us. I wish I could see like a nice list of things. But was there anything that was announced at the show that kind of we'll kind of go? I don't know if you remember, or even if you have like a handful of things that stood out to you. But like, what was one of the things that was shown there? Was like got you kind of excited?
Oh, well, obviously the big thing that was announced that had me banging on my desk like a goblin was the Final Fantasy 16 DLC.
Mm.
I guess it was sort of expected because they said they were going to talk about it soon, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, Game Awards is coming up. It'd be really cool if they showed something." But I didn't expect them to actually show both of the next planned DLCs, and it didn't really have any kind of like lead up, like related type of things. Like it didn't come after 16 won an award or anything like that. So it was just kind of unexpected and very welcomed. But
Yeah.
that was the one thing that actually like got me really, really excited. And the other thing that think I joked about last time was that all I really want to see is a trailer for what's coming next in Honkai Star Rail. And then they actually had a little trailer for it, but they didn't show anything for what's coming next. It's like, here's 4 seconds of Penacony. Hope you enjoy that. I was like, I've already seen all of these things. I want to see what's coming next. And they just showed the next two like big characters, I guess, but kind of overshadowed by 16's DLC announcement. So that's okay. Those were the only 2 things that I think I was really, I guess, excited for or looking forward to or wanting to expect. A couple things that got release dates that I had been looking forward to, like I don't remember if Banishers had a release date before, but that was there, like Rise of the Ronin, stuff like that. Getting release dates, that was pretty nice. I always love a trailer with a release date at the end of it. So those are kind of the other things I was really hoping for, was when are these things that I want to play coming out?
Yeah, Rise of the Ronin getting the March 2024 release date, March 22nd. That was good to see. And then I think also Skull and Bones with another release date revealed in February. I'm curious if that'll get delayed or if they'll actually hit it. I know there's going to be another closed beta. I'm like, you guys have had so much, but I'll be curious to see how that game performs player base wise once it gets released. Because like I said, I enjoyed what I played in the. I can't talk about it, but I enjoyed what I played in the closed alpha. But we'll see what happens once it gets fully released. But and then Banishers getting it's just another trailer.
February,
it doesn't say
February 13th.
Is that the date? Yeah,
that's
it doesn't say.
I noted it down.
Banishers Ghost of New Eden release date.
Flipping through my calendar.
February 13th.
What I noted down. Oh, yeah. Huge for us. Me in particular, and Michael. Black Myth Wukong got a release date and like had a trailer with English voice acting. That was insane. That it's actually been shown at a huge event like this. We're so fucking excited for that game.
It's so funny because I like in my head, like I remember seeing so much of this, and like there was a demo for it too, right?
Not that I know of.
Was there none for?
There was a demo for Wulong.
Wulong, that's what it was. Yeah, because I think at some point like those two just kind of crossed streams in my head, and I thought Black Myth Wukong was already out. So when I saw the trailer, I was like, I thought this game was already out, and then I was like, is this a DLC? And then I was like, oh no, but I was just like, oh, I thought it was already here, but that's one. And then apparently there's a Brothers Tale of Two Sons getting a remake, which I saw. I was like, I guess you could remake that, but it's not like a game that
benefits from like graphical updates.
Yeah, it's not like, because when did Brothers a Tale was that was a PS3 game, wasn't it? The Brothers, I think that was.
It had to have been, because it feels like it came out forever ago. Maybe early PS4.
Yeah, Bernie played it on the Xbox 360, I think, and I remember him talking about it on an RT podcast way back in the day. Yeah, it's a 2013 game. It doesn't. Okay, so it came out PS3 and PS4. So it must have come out like right at the end of 2013. I thought, because I thought it came out. I thought it came out first on Xbox and then later came to So here it is. The Xbox 360 in August of that year, and then on PS3 August or on September 3rd in North America, and then September 1st on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. So it released earlier on 360 apparently, and then came to the other platforms later. Yeah, because I didn't play it right away, but I'm like, do you really need to update it? I mean, but whatever. There's that, and then the Jurassic Park survival seems interesting to me. Like it apparently takes place like you're an engine scientist who was left on the island like the day after everybody already evacuated. So
which is so hilarious to me. Like, really, this one person was left behind during this whole thing.
And like, which kind of makes sense. It was like, we got to get out of here. So it's like, how did you get stuck? Did you get knocked out? Were you on like a different part of the island? And because you lost communications, you didn't know how to get back. Like, I'm curious what the opening is going to be like. But if like a first person survival game, like trying to, survive in Jurassic Park seems like it could be pretty fun. It is made by Saber Interactive. They're not like a huge studio, but I'll be curious to see how it does. But yeah, it looks interesting. And then BioWare veterans at a team from Archetype Entertainment showed off a game called Exodus, which was shown by Matthew McConaughey, which looks interesting. But yeah, it's a bunch of ex-BioWare devs, and they got a bunch of ex-Naughty Dog people there as well. So that's why it looks so like Mass Effect-y in its trailer. It sounds interesting. Gameplay looked kind of like, okay, I've kind of seen this before, but I'll be curious to see how it does when it, like, as we get closer and we see more gameplay from it and find out more about it. But it sounds interesting. But yeah, I'm curious to see how it actually turns out as development keeps going. So that one's got me curious. New IP is always interesting because it's like the hit rate for new IP is always really rough because people want it, but then they don't want to actually spend time playing it or trying it. And you still have that case where a lot of times it's like you can have great ideas, but it could still be an Assassin's Creed 2 situation where it's like you have, or Uncharted 2, where it's like you have a great skeleton here for this game. It's all there. You just need to make some tweaks, and those tweaks can be made in the second game. But not enough people commit to that first game to actually warrant the next game to be made, which is, it's tough. It's like it's really hard to really hit all your stuff right out the gate. Even like a game like Immortals of Aveum, which reviewed really well, and just like not enough people played it. And like that's a game, and we talked about it before. Like I want to play it, and I'm one of those people. Like I didn't play it at launch, so didn't get the support, so it's probably not going to sequel. But I'm still interested, and I still want to play that game. I just at the time I just couldn't get it because I was busy with other stuff and yada yada. But like, yeah, it's got to be, or like a game like Forspoken, another new IP that comes out that's like, okay, you have some good ideas, but maybe it just didn't hit there with everybody. It's like it's got to be tough to do a new IP. But
I think a lot of people have high expectations because you get all of these series that have been refined over time and stuff like that. But when a new IP comes out, a lot of people forget that like the first game in a series is not always the best game. I mean, look at Assassin's Creed. The first game was good and it was very interesting because it was kind of like a new thing and it had all of these new ideas and stuff like that. But when you go back and play just that game, no like remake, no like re-release or anything like that, just the base game, it's got a lot of problems that you don't realize until you've played other games in the series or similar games that have built off of that formula. So it's like people tend to forget that when you try new things, it's not going to be this like crazy, mind-blowing, like refined experience that you would expect of that game 10 years down the line.
Right. And it's also that difference, and we've talked about it in the past, where if it's a new IP from an already established studio, it has a much better success rate than if it's an IP made by a new studio who's made up of an amalgamation of a bunch of different developers. Like they could say, oh, ex Naughty Dog devs. It's like, okay, but they have experience, sure, But it's like, that doesn't mean, especially because it's like they can have the talent to do the job, but if you don't have the direction, the game direction, going back to Game Awards, like if you don't have the good game direction and design to begin with from the folks up top, it doesn't matter how good the employees are if what they're working with. It's like a great performance in a movie with a bad script. It's like, yeah, you can have that. You can have great employees, but if your lead folks aren't that good or they can't hit that vision, it's tough. And yeah, the success rate for brand new studios is even lower than established studios doing new IPs. Yeah, like Last of Us, obviously new IP from when Naughty Dog did it. It's like, but they've worked on so many other games. It's like, okay, and obviously Uncharted was a new IP when they did, but of course it really kicked off with Uncharted 2. But yeah, it's like it's got to be rough. But yeah. And then the other thing they showed was Sean Murray was there showing their new game that they're working on called Light No Fire, which is like, it's like, oh, it's Earth, and then it's like, oh, it's a fantasy Earth, and like it's so weird. Like, why do we? Everybody's like, why are we calling it Earth then? like, I feel like you would call it Earth if it had like Earth landmarks that you can find. Not like actual like buildings, but like Rocky Mountains, like stuff you could see, like Mount Everest. Stuff like that exists. Yosemite National Park.
Is this like a far past or a far future kind of Earth?
Yeah.
Like so far in the future that no remnants of civilization exist.
Yeah. But yeah, it's that looks really interesting. I love the idea behind it. Like the planet is actually to scale. Kind of like the way how Starfield had like the distance between planets, like I don't know if it's 1-to-1, but like it takes forever. Like people did, like they'd fly from, one planet to this other planet, and it would just take forever because it's like, yeah, you have to go. Space is huge, so it's like they have like a 7-hour stream of them going somewhere. It's like that, but apply it to a planet. I think that'd be really cool. And it doesn't say procedurally generated; it just says procedural. So I'm curious if that's like, because people automatically assume that procedural means procedurally generated. I'm like, well, they're two different words. That's why it doesn't say one or the other. It's like it just says procedural. So I'm curious if there are seasons and if stuff can grow back, like you cut down trees, and like games like The Forest, the trees will come back. So I'm curious if it'll be like that. Like, okay, yeah, stuff will come back and that kind of thing. But yeah, I'm also wondering, like, okay, well, how do you spawn in? Like, you make new characters. Does everybody start on the same continent, same area? Or is it all different? Because I'm like, okay, well, then how does multiplayer work? Like, okay, do we have to join in the lobby first? That way we spawn at the same spot when we make a character? Or that's going to be like, oh, man, how am I going to... Or can you, like, are they going to make it so you can teleport to each other? Like, I'm curious.
Imagine just, like, spawning into the world and assuming that you've spawned, like, somewhat near each other, and like 4 hours later you're like, I think I'm on a different continent than you are.
Like, yeah, what do you see around you? What landmarks? I'm like, I'm in a desert. You're like, well, I'm in the snow, so probably not going to be able to find each other that well. Yeah, because that seems like a game. Like, man, I feel like I've talked so much about wanting to play like just No Man's Sky, especially in VR, since so much of it has been updated over time. But like to get this new game, like, you know what, maybe this should be like the point where I should like get in on day one and we just play it. That would be fun. But yeah, outside of that, there's a Blade announcement, but obviously that's from Arcane, so it's probably going to be Xbox exclusive. It doesn't say Xbox on the trailer, but I feel like that's just, whatever. Unless it was in negotiations before the acquisition. I have no idea. That was so long ago. It's like, I can't imagine it would have been that far back that they're finally getting the game out. But there's God of War Ragnarok DLC that's coming out in 2 days from this recording. It's like a
Wait, what? 2 days?
Yeah, it comes out on the 12th.
Oh, crap.
Yeah. So that'll be there. It's free DLC. I probably won't jump on it immediately, but it is there. And then,
oh, God, it's December. Oh, God.
Yeah. And then, I guess when they won, when Remedy won for Alan Wake 2 on their second win, one of the folks said, like, oh, hey, New Game Plus is coming out next week. It'll have a new ending and some new, like, story lore pages that you can find, like, I guess, in the manuscript. I'm like, I'm like, okay, that's good, but if the new ending fixes my issues with the current ending, I'm going to be really annoyed because then this should have been there from the get-go.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mind a game that makes you play it twice to get the real ending. We've talked about this before, like, oh, the Resident Evil 2 A and B missions. Like, you play the one and you play the other, get the full ending. I'm like, that's fine, whatever. But yeah, it's like, it should have been there from the get. And I'm like, okay, I guess if I'm going to replay it, I'll probably just, because they say like, oh, it'll be even more of a challenge. I'm like, I don't want to go through the entire game again. Add an increased challenge just because I have all my shit to see the ending. Like, I'm probably just going to put on like story mode and then just speed through that thing with all my stuff and just blast through all that and just get the new ending because I got to see it. But
Which is what New Game Plus is supposed to be for. It's like, I already played this game. I already experienced it. I want to see the new things, and I want to just be incredibly powerful while I do it.
well, it typically, like, I don't mind like when they do like okay, because you have all your stuff, like maybe do like enemy remixes, like, oh, some enemies that weren't there are here now, or like there's more elite enemies showing up. Like, I don't mind that because I still like I don't always like playing where everything is just a total breeze. Like, I still, I'll get into it when I talk about what we're playing later, but like I still do want a challenge a bit. But this is such a story game that I'm like, if it was like NG Plus or God of War, it's like, okay, I want to do that grind for like the new gear, get those new levels for the level cap they increased or whatever. But this is like, it's a story game. I want to get to that new story ending like
I want
immediately.
to get to the story.
Yeah, I want to do it super fast. And typically, like most games, like have it where if an NG plus is part of the thing, usually that second run, well, not always, but sometimes that second run can be a little faster. But usually, because like I feel like the B stuff in Resident Evil 2, I think is, even though you get more at the end, I feel like it goes a little quicker. That could be just because you're more familiar with the play space, but because they do kind of still lock you out from some locations and what have you. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. But that's just come out this week as well, so I'll probably want to do that before I try the God of War DLC. But yeah, there wasn't too much else from Game Wars that was shown that like Kojima's game. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on there. That doesn't tell me anything. Like,
yeah, but that's very Kojima. Like, nobody's gonna know what this game is or what it's about or even how it plays until it comes out.
like I don't know. I felt like it would, like, the announcer of Death Stranding like got me, like the first trailer got me interested. I'm like, okay, there's Norman Reedus, there's the fetus, there's some floating people in the sky, bunch of dead animals. I'm like, it at least was a little more like visually. Like, this is like just showing these, which I guess weren't actors. It was like whatever game engine, like it's a render of their faces talking. So whatever tech they're using, I can't imagine they're using Decima because that's owned by Guerrilla Games. So Sony wouldn't let Kojima use that probably for an Xbox game, right? So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I'm trying to go through this list, see if there's anything else that was shown that had me interested. And I know there's a new game from the Ori devs, but I'd never played Ori, so, and I don't know if that'll be. I don't know. It's coming to PlayStation, so
It's going to be very pretty. It's going to be very good, and it's going to be very depressing.
Yeah. And then yeah, there's not a go through that one game. It looks interesting, but it's not really my style of game. Is that Tales of Kinzera Zhao, the 2D side scroller? That's it's an EA Originals game. It's from.
I'm gonna play that.
Yeah, it looks like, I'm like, man, like it looks like it reminds me of like the Prince of Persia coming out from Ubisoft as well, where it's like it looks like a game that I would have fun playing because there was a time where like I really liked 2D side scroller platformers like that. They're a lot of fun, and like Outlast. No, was it? What was the one with it was on PS3? I thought it was called, or maybe it was Outcast. I don't know. It was like you swap between the red and blue colors, very much like Ikaruga or whatever. But it's like,
I don't remember.
Yeah, that was a 2D platformer. Like, I like 2D platformers. It's just yeah, who knows? Maybe I'll pick it up at some point. But yeah, not much else. There was, I guess, As Dusk Falls is coming to PS4 and PS5. That was a Xbox exclusive. I don't know. But The Last Sentinel was revealed. It's a game from let's see, from Lightspeed Studios and Lightspeed LA. But it's like, it takes place in the future of Tokyo. I'm like, okay, but I want to see some gameplay.
Right.
So I'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, because then there's another game. My mic. There's another game called like The First Descendant. I'm like, it's a third-person looter shooter, coming summer 2024, I guess. But I need to see some more of that. And
there was a lot of like they do all the time, which I hate. It's like, hey, we're working on this game and it's going to come out, but you don't really know anything about it. It's like, all right, well, it's not on my radar at all. The only game that did that is on my radar is the game that Ikumi Nakamura introduced. I will play anything that woman makes, has involvement with, whatever. I adore her. That's the only thing that's like, I don't know what this is, but I'm gonna buy it and I'm gonna play it.
Yeah, I'm curious how quickly she'll get a publisher.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's it for basically what we're kind of interested at the Game Awards and the awards themselves. Yeah, so we can go ahead and now jump into what we've been playing. I know you're still playing Palia.
I was gonna say I'll give you 2 guesses as to what I've been playing.
Right now.
I'm literally playing it right now. Yeah, this is pretty much all I'm playing. Oh, that was another thing that was announced at the Game Awards. Palia is coming to Switch, which I was really, really, really excited for, because it's like, oh, now I have something that's just like mindless, that is continuous, that doesn't really have an end. I can just sit like on the couch or in bed or on my break at work and just like get some things done and play it. And then I started to think about like not really the issues, but kind of like the cons that are going on. And it's like, wow, I really hope they do some more significant updates to the spawn of resources when you get later on into the game. And I know that they did, in one of the recent updates, they did update, or they did change some of the spawn locations for the Pallium ore, which is kind of like a rare-ish resource in the later area. So I think that's a little bit easier to get. I haven't gone really like in-depth farming for it, but I did go by some of like the old farming spots for it and noticed that there wasn't very many, or it had shown up in like other places, so I guess that's good. But as far as like the later stage like wood, it's still a very rare resource that only spawns in like a medium quantity once a game day. So that's going to be a little bit, if like more people join and get up to that part fairly quickly, the resource management is going to be a little bit weird. But I don't know, it's still in beta, so it's like maybe that's something that they're testing, is to see like, oh, we get another platform involved in this and more people are playing, what do we need to balance as far as like resources go? So that's really the only thing. And then not really sure how I'm going to communicate with people on Switch, but that's such a non-issue for me, I think, because I don't really talk to people anyway. So I don't know, we'll see. I started thinking about all these, like, as I'm playing, what is this going to be like to play on Switch? So, but as far as like something to pick up and just run around and farm my materials or gather things or check on my garden and stuff like that, I think it's going to be really good on Switch. But that's pretty much all I've been playing, just playing this while I'm catching up on videos that I've missed and continuing to watch people play Lethal Company.
Yeah, it's funny because like you're thinking about how it's going to play on Switch. They announced that Baldur's Gate launched on Xbox at the Game Awards, like to kind of offhanded announce it, like no fanfare for it. But
right.
I heard someone on a podcast saying like, "Oh, now it's on Xbox, I'll finally play it." And it's just like in my head, I'm like, I know it controls fine, and they've kind of compartmentalized the menu and actions in the radio wheels and whatnot. But I'm like, man, you couldn't have just played this on PC, like. Especially because they were from like a major outlet as well. They weren't like, it wasn't just someone small. It's like you could have been there from the get. Like everyone was already saying it was good, and like, oh, now I'll get it now. It's like, but man, I feel like especially for someone who's so people who are kind of apprehensive about getting into it just because it doesn't seem like their kind of game, but they want to try it to at least get their some opinion and see if it clicks, because they hear so many other folks saying like, oh man, I thought it wouldn't. And then it just like, bam, I was all in. Like, yeah, maybe I don't like, the combat. I just turn down the difficulty, but everything else about it, I love, it's like,
Right.
but I'm like, that's fine to be, look cautious about jumping in. So I was like, but you should play it on like a PC, man. Just it will control. So especially if combat is your concern, I'm like, I can't imagine like, oh, I don't like combat, but then I have this radio wheel I gotta deal with, especially because you're not gonna master that shit until like hours of gameplay, right? Like radio wheels aren't bad. Like I'm so used to them in games, but it's like, if you're not used to them and that kind of game, like I've played Divinity on console. I know what to expect. I've played so many other games on console that have start on PC and have, ports and stuff that I'm used to those kind of conversions. Like, okay, what I can expect in menu navigation. And it's just like, man, that's like the worst possible thing you can do, especially if you want to give it a try. It's like, just have someone share it on their Steam account with you and just play it on there, man. It's like, just use the better controls. And then if you want to keep going, just use the cross save functionality and play it on that platform, with a controller, or at least try it on the PC with the controller, because it's going to be the same control scheme. And then if it feels funny, switch to the mouse and keyboard to get through the combat fights. That's what some people have said as well. Like they'll use a controller for like run around navigation and exploring. But yeah, as soon as they get in like combat, it's like, I just grab the mouse and keyboard and do that real quick or whatever. And then just go back to using controller. So it's like, it just, because I feel like, why would you put another challenge in front of you for a game that you're not sure if you're going to enjoy, but there's a chance you could really enjoy, but now you're just adding another hurdle because you're using what will be for you a more difficult control scheme. So it's just weird. Yeah, I've been playing Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. I picked that up, and that game's just, I got on PC and it looks so good. I'm like, that's what I love. I'm like, I just want like a beautiful open world. I mean, that's why I replayed Far Cry New Dawn, because like I just want all those like that pink flowers that popped up everywhere and just add like great color. The animals that have color to them now, it looks so good. And but yeah, playing Avatar, and especially because it's like so they do that thing that they did in like Assassin's Creed games where you can turn on exploration for quests and stuff, where it's like, oh, Eivor, you have to go here and talk to so-and-so. And on the quest log, it's like, okay, it's north of the river, blah, and south of, this fort. So if you have the map cleared, you can see like, okay, it's above the river. So, okay, I'm just going to go to this general spot. And usually once you get close enough, it's like, okay, you're in the general area. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to play that way in Avatar. Problem with Avatar is like, there's no roads, right? There's some walking paths, but there's no like industrial roads. There's no, big things of architecture. They build all their stuff in trees. So it's like, it's so much different with just tons of like flora and fauna I'm not used to because it's an alien world, and like trying to navigate, like, it's like, oh, it works sometimes where it's like, okay, it does the thing. It's like, oh, they're over here. They saw like I had a side quest, like they're looking for a person, a human that they scared off, and they thought they're working for the RDA, which is like the bad human agency. I forget what the RDA stands for. Really dumb agency. I don't know. But like the bad guys. And like, oh, I saw a human. I don't know if they were part of the RDA, but they were over here. I chased them off. And in the log, it's like, okay, they crossed the river and went towards the, what do they call it? Like the something circle. And I'm like, so I look on the map and I'm like, okay, here's the river. The river's south of where I'm at. And they went along it towards the something circle. And I'm looking on the map and I'm like, where the hell's the circle name? I don't see it on the map. And I see like a shroud where I haven't quite explored. And usually when that happens, where like I can't navigate, I'll just go into the menus real quick and turn on, okay, guided. And then I see where the marker is, which rarely happens, but it happened in this case. I'm like, okay, I could just run around. I'm sure I'll find it. But I'm like, okay, I don't see on the map where it says the circle. So I don't know quite which direction I need to run in. And then it's like, oh, it's here. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I'm like, okay, I guess, yeah, the way the river kind of goes, it does kind of make a circle around these little islands. I guess that's why it has a circle name. And I'm like, maybe when I clear enough of the shroud, it'll say like, oh, this is the circle, whatever area, like it does for other parts. So I could run there, and I turn it back to guided, so I don't have the marker, and I'd run to that location. I do some stuff along the way, and I get there, and I do the side quest. I'm like, I look on the map, and like, still doesn't say circle. Then I zoom out the map, and then I see like, oh, the circle name, like 2-word circle name, it's where like the main base is where you kind of start the game, because it's a giant like crater looking area. So they call it like the whatever circle, like the spine circle, whatever. And then so I'm like, oh, if I had zoomed out, which means I wouldn't have seen the river because the river name only shows up if you zoom in. I was saying like, oh, here's the river, and they went towards the circle, so they went east. I'm like, that would have been easy to follow. I just didn't think about the fact that, oh, I need to zoom out to see the region names. That didn't occur to me. So like that threw me off. And I had one where it was like, oh, they're above this this thing. Oh, it's the other thing too. Like they don't, there's no telegraphing of paths really, because it's very much more natural formation of the environment, it feels like. So I had like one where I had to go find some people that were atop this waterfall, and I like, how the fuck do I navigate up this thing, man? And it was like, I was getting so lost. I was like, man, this is like, if you had just dropped me in the middle of the forest, like this is, I guess I would feel this way. Like I'd have no idea what the fuck I was doing.
Just like, I don't know where I am. Everything is trees.
Yeah, it's all like trees. There's animals. I hear noises. I don't know what's going to kill me. The plants attack me. I'm like, oh, it's an alien world, man. Like, which is also awesome because it's like, I don't have any of that familiarity. Like I have no ideas. And again, because there are no standard roads outside of some walking paths near major places, or if you find like in a industrial complex area where it's like an oil refinery, you got to shut it down, and like you can see some like roads with tracks on them. That makes sense because the RDA has been driving vehicles to and from, and that usually leads to another RDA facility or what have you. So it's like, okay, that makes sense in world why there's a quote unquote road here in the mud. But other than that, like you don't have like, and they do have like a quote unquote like highway system of like tree roots, where like the roots of the trees come out of the ground and like these little like flower plants on them that like spit out these spores that make you, if you breathe them in, you run faster. So it's like this nice like natural nature highway system you can use to like go across. Plus you're above ground, so any like enemies below you aren't going to get you. And so that's really fun. There's like these vines that you can run up to, and you like hold square, and they like pull you up, and then you can like climb up to high places, or you can run up to them and hold square and go down. It's like a great way to do that. Traversal just feels great. There's a double jump, and I love the way they do the double jump in this game, because it's not like Far Cry New Dawn has a double jump, but it's very much magical, like in nature, the way you get it, because like there's like a special radiation fruit, and it gives you the ability to double jump. But it's very much like, okay, but it feels more realistic in the sense that you're not jumping a second time. It's like if you ever watch long jumpers, you know how when they jump, they also swing their arms and like scoop the air to give them a little further distance. It's kind of like that, where like the Navi, they jump, and then to get that extra boost, they kind of swing their arms out like they're pushing the air, like because they're so big, like they can cause enough force to give them a little more momentum. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. I like that.
It's not just like a second jump animation. There's actually like a special animation for it.
Right. It's like there's actually, it makes more sense. Like, okay, not that it's totally plausible that would happen, but it's like it's believable enough. Like I'm not getting a huge enough boost from it, that it's more like a distance booster, like when you're jumping versus a vertical jump. Like, yeah, I could do it when I jump in the air, but it's not going to give you like that much hops. It's not like Alucard and Symphony of the Shadows getting, his capes becoming wings, whatnot. So I thought that was really cool. I'm like, this is also, they do this thing like in the beginning, because you're Navi, you're super tall, and it's so weird to play a game around other humans because they're just so small. And I'm like, and my main character, like, she'll get down and kneel to like be eye contact with people, and it's so funny. And then we're done, like my character stands up like, oh, that's right, I'm fucking tall as shit. And like when you're trying to escape like the facility you're in, which is a human facility, so like all the hallways, like your eye level's basically at the ceiling, and like you gotta crouch to get through doorways. And then like if you're crouching in like a hallway that was never meant for like the Navi to, like the story is like, oh, they probably kidnapped some Navi children to raise them under the RDA teachings and whatnot, to be soldiers. And even though they probably told the scientists they're the one that helps you in the game like that, oh, it can be a great way to, versus the avatar program of creating avatars to go, what do they call them, dreamwalkers, to go talk to the natives. We can raise some that be taught our ways to as a bridge between the groups, even though it's really just a militarized reason they're doing it. So like there's sections of the base you're going to where it's like you can't, it's not for avatars, it's for the Navi, it's for the humans. So like you have to crouch, but if you try to uncrouch or jump, like you hear the character go, ooh, ow, because like they're hitting their head on the ceiling. And I'm like, I've never seen that in a game where it's like, you're like, ooh, like you actually hear them kind of react to the fact they can't do it. Or like at one point, like I punched there's a fan blocking an event, so I punched it, but because it's a fan that's spinning, you punch it. It's like my character's like, ow, like it hurts them. Like I was like, that's so interesting. Like it's these little details I never think about. Where it's like, oh yeah, it still hurts a bit to do that. But
it would hurt if you punch a spinning fan.
Yeah, so what I like is I am playing on hard mode, but what I did was it allows custom difficulty adjustments. So I put it like, okay, the enemies do hard mode damage, but instead of me doing the hard mode low damage, I just put it up to medium. So it's like, okay, I'm still Navi. It's like I should be these arrows, like I'm pulling this bow motherfucker back. Like, don't give them more health, but make them hit harder. And so I'm like, I love that, more like a Souls experience, I guess, where it's like, I mean, there's some enemies that still, because like the normal human enemies, like they just die from a bow because the bows are so huge. But like the people in like the mech suits and stuff are a little more challenged. But yeah, it's fun doing that, and I love like the crafting because I love crafting in games and getting stuff to improve your gear. I wish there was so it's like, oh, okay, how clean is the kill? Like if you can kill something in one hit, so basically it requires you like hit the weak spot of the animal. It's like you get like a perfect skin and like perfect meat harvest. Otherwise, if you don't, like if you shoot it or blow it up, like you can't harvest anything. Or if you don't get a clean kill, it's like, okay, well, you get just an okay tier of skin. And like the better that material is, you can make better stuff. So like you can make like, oh, I can make a chest piece out of this skin from the Viper Wolf, but the range at which the health it gives me is like a pretty significant range. Like, I'm making up these numbers like 15 to 45. It's like, well, it depends on the quality of the skin you have. And so it's like, if you can get some really good skin and whatever other materials you might require, it's like, if they're all pristine, it's like now you can make a much better piece. Like you can sort of get like that range of colored gear within each gear piece based on how you've harvested materials. And then the plants are like that too, where it's like, oh, to harvest this plant properly, you need to like break off the thing this way. You don't want to do too hard. You got to do soft. Just a little. You can turn that off too. So it's like if you don't care about that, you can be like, no, just give me the best materials every time. You can turn it off. So if you don't want to bother with it, you don't have to. But I leave it on because I like that shit. And then it's like, okay, it's like, oh, this plant gives this, but if you want the best version of this material, you should harvest it when it's raining or when it's this. So I like how it's like, okay, I can get it now if I need it, but if I want to come back and really min-max what I'm doing, it's like, okay, I'll wait till it rains and then I'll harvest that shit and get like the best stuff. So I like that kind of thing. It's so I'm like, and like, of course you can make food and all the food gives you bonuses. So I'm like all the people that cook food and like Zelda, I'm like, no other game really does that. Like there's crafting in like the Far Cry games where it's like, oh, you can make combine some flowers together to give you like a speed boost or allow you to see enemies through walls, shit like that. I'm like, okay, I'll make those sometimes. So I'm not actively going out to harvest. Where this is like every time I make a new recipe, it's always like, oh well, if you eat this because you have like a food meter, you gotta replenish every now and I forget what the negatives are. I think if you have I think that's related to stamina. So it's like if your stamina's all the way down, I don't think you can regenerate HP out of combat, or maybe it's slower. And I also think how long your sprint is, I think, is affected as well. But yeah, anyways, you make food and it's like, oh, well, if you make this food, it gives you, damage resistance, or this food gives you more HP, it's like for 8 minutes or whatever. It's like whatever time it is. Like the better quality ingredients means the more time, the more stuff, and you can save your favorite recipes and whatnot. And the one thing I don't like is it does the thing that like Subnautica, it lets you like, oh, I really like this. I want to pin the ingredients to the top of my screen. But to unpin it, it's not just unpin from the recipe. It's like I have to go into this other weird way to do it to unpin them one by one. I'm like, if I pin it like this, I should be able to just unpin it, by clicking the same recipe and saying unpin again. Like, so that's a weird UI thing they got to fix. And then I don't know, I haven't actually used that functionality, so I don't know if it's like, if it tells you, typically in like Far Cry New Dawn does this, where if I wanted to upgrade a weapon, I pin the ingredients. It tells me how many I have, and if I'm over the amount I need, the font is green, and if it's not, it's still like, I think it's white, or it's red on white because I'm short. And then once you get it, then it highlights to green. I don't know if it does that for this because I had the ingredients from one of the recipes, so I said like, oh, pin recipe or pin the ingredients, but it's like, it's just the icons. It doesn't actually say like, oh, you need, you have 6 or whatever. So I'm curious how that'll work when you go out. But yeah, just it's such a good, like, I feel like Isley would probably enjoy just running around exploring. Again, if you turn off the guided stuff and just put on purely exploration and have to like, because although I did have one bit where it's like I had a quest where I had to go up like this really high point, and I get up there and like I talk to this person, I get a radio call, they're like, oh, we're under attack at this research station. It's like, oh, I had like 6.5 minutes to get to location. And it's like, oh, follow the smoke. And it's like, get to the research station. And I thought like, oh, it must be back at HQ because that's where the only research station that we have. So I thought like, oh, I have to get back. And I'm like, man, getting back down the way I came was like a pain in the ass. I was struggling with it because I kept like dying by falling too far by mistake. And then I get back and I'm like, I finally get to HQ. I'm like, oh, timer's still ticking. Didn't trigger like a cutscene. I'm like, okay, I must not be in the right spot. So then I go back and I have myself die so I can retry, and then I turn on the guided, and I see like it's way off in the other distance. It's like the distance. It's the direction that you're facing when like the cutscene ends, which makes total sense. Like that's what you would do. Like you're making a player go to a new location. You have them face that way, especially if they have visibility, and you do something. And there's supposed to be like a thing of smoke coming out. But the problem was it was also raining and super cloudy. So like I couldn't see the smoke well from where I was. And that's why like it didn't click that, oh, I need to go that direction. And so like I finally went the direction, like, and then eventually like I could see the smoke. I'm like, oh, okay. So it was like, I don't know if that was just something I got to fix, like maybe I think the rain is more tied to actually the cycle of the day, not the mission. Like sometimes some games have like, oh, this mission's always at nighttime. This one takes place when it's raining. They're tied to that. I don't think that was the case for this one. I think it just happened to be the fact that it was raining by the time I got up to where I was. So I think that was just a weird circumstance of why I didn't know what direction to go initially. But yeah, also what's great is that spot where you're at that you get to in that cutscene is like, it's super high and it's above a lake. So it can be used as a fast travel point. Like to get to the circle area, it's very much kind of closed off. It's like the best way to do it is just fast travel there. And then when you go anywhere else, just leave out of it. Cause it's kind of there's only a couple ways to get out, at least where the initial quests are. Like you can go south, but there's probably nothing down there quest wise that you need just yet. So I love fast traveling to that high point and just be like, okay, I'm just going to jump off and land in the water. It's just so fun, seeing everything up there. And like the game also, from a technical standpoint, I love is like, it reminds me a lot of like Spider-Man 2, where it's like, yeah, it's just a city, but you get so much detail of all the buildings and the density of those buildings as you're like flying around in the wingsuit. It looks so good. It's not like, little blocky buildings. Like it's the detail, the LOD on them just looks great at a distance. And then it improves, of course, as you get closer. Like it looks so good, which like kind of, I'm surprised it didn't get any like technical. I'm sure maybe it will, like DICE or something. I feel like DICE is where they kind of appreciate technical stuff way more than Games Press. But, because it's the peers, they know like what it takes to actually do something.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like I feel that where it's like I can get high up and like the level of detail and density of everything that there is when you're so high up is insane. And like I can't wait to get the flying mount and then just going around, much like with like Horizon Forbidden West, and just seeing all the detail, just everything, and just checking it out from the sky is going to be so cool. I do wish they had the same clouds that Horizon Burning Shores did, because the clouds, I think, are the one weak point in their engine, where I'm like, and I put the clouds up to max, but they still kind of look a little janky. I'm like, man, I wish you had that cool volumetric real clouds that Burning Shores did. I mean, the downside there is they're static clouds in Burning Shores with some fake clouds around them, but like they don't move. But I like that it looks so much better. Even the base game for Horizon had really good clouds. They were voxel based, but you can't see that, like, maybe it's the distance that the clouds are. I feel like the clouds in Pandora or Avatar, AFOP as they call it, which is annoying. So that's the other thing too. I'm going to tangent myself, is I was using the photo mode, and typically when I take screenshots, I've been using like NVIDIA's overlay, like, hit F12 and it takes a screenshot or whatever. So I'm like, oh, it has a photo mode. Okay, I'll press X to take the photo, and then I'm like, where the fuck did the photos go? So I'm like, okay, how do I find these photos in the directory? And like, I knew how to find them for the NVIDIA, where it's like, okay, I go to my C drive, users, go to me, go to screenshots. Okay, there's a list of my Ubisoft games, because I've been playing those recently, and it's like, okay, they're in there. I'm like, but Avatar's not there. I'm like, oh, where the fuck is Avatar? And like trying to Google, like, where are photo mode screenshots for video games, and like no one. It's really hard to find like a result, and I finally get one. I had to like word it right, and it's like, oh, you have to go here. It's like, oh, now I have to go to like C drive, user, documents, and then from documents go to whatever other folder. Let me see what is some right here. I can tell it's like some weird see, C drive, users, me, documents. Then from documents I go to my games. I go to AFOP, and then from AFOP I go to screenshots, and there's my screenshots. And it's just like, why do I have two different paths for screenshots? And I'm like, I know one's from NVIDIA and one's from the actual game, but it was driving me crazy, like trying to find these fucking screenshots, man. I was like, where are they? Just put it. And I gotta like go in there and like redirect it to like, now you put the screenshots in the same folder every time. And I'm like documents is so weird. Like, why documents? Like, why not? I don't know. Pictures.
And next time you get a new game, it'll be a completely different directory. Or if you ever use like, for a game that doesn't have a photo mode or any way to like take in-game screenshots, if you use like the Xbox game bar, it saves everything under videos in like the video directory, and so it's like nothing's in its own folder. Like, it's just all your videos, all your screenshots for every game that you've ever used the Xbox game bar for are just in your videos folder under like captures or something like that.
Yeah, it's I gotta like just stick to only using the NVIDIA capture, because at least from there I can go from the UI to, say, open folder, and it just goes straight to the folder that they're in. I don't have to remember the pathing for it. I just create shortcuts for both these on my desktop. It'd be easier. It's like when my kid was doing a screen record when he was playing Roblox on the iPad, and he gets done and he goes, where's it saved? I'm like, well, it should be in photos. But for some reason, if you have like a long enough screen record, like iOS doesn't save it there immediately. Like, it takes time to, I guess, render in the background, which is weird. So it's like, it took for like, I even did like a 5-second one. It didn't show up. I'm like, what the fuck? So I'm like Googling the problems, like, oh, I like it take a while and yada, yada. And then I'm like, God damn it. I was like, why can't you just do it immediately? Because he was like, where's my video? And I'm like, it should be here. It's like, well, it's not. And I was just like, fucking lag. I don't know what's causing it.
Well, it's not. I don't know what to tell you. Sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm enjoying Frontiers of Pandora. I'm not super far into it. Like I said, I'm trying to. Typically with open world games, I do a lot of run around and explore, and I'm trying not to do that. Like, no, I need to do the Golden Path main story for a while until I unlock some things. Then I can run around and do whatever. Because yeah, it's like I know, like I think the mount is probably pretty quick. And it's like I just need to focus on this. Like I did it. It's like, oh, here's a new bow you get. I'm like, oh, great. Now I have this. This would have been nice when I was doing something earlier. I was like, okay, I'll hell, just main path it.
Just
and
main
do a
path until you find the intended spot that they want you to go off and explore.
Yeah, when it's finally like, okay, now you know, but which I feel like is when they give you the flying mount, would be like, okay, now you're good. And I zoomed out and looked at the map and I'm like, it's a nice big map. I'm like, I can't wait. And yeah, it's just so beautiful. Like I love the forest, and it's just like very tropical in a lot of spots and just looks so good. I'm like, I watch like Digital Foundries. I guess there's a hidden graphics setting called like unobtainium mode, which I just to play on the mineral that they mine in that movie. And it's like, but it like destroys a 4090 like when you watch it, like it's just because it's so high in stuff, and like it looks really good. They use a global illumination for their ray tracing, which is great. And then like like the ground, like all the foliage and everything on the ground is just, it's not just like a texture, like it's really, it just looks really good. I'm like, man, you guys really knocked it out of the park with this game. And like the pop-in's like not that noticeable. Like cuz I'm so used to like, cuz like Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Valhalla like had some, Valhalla especially had really beautiful landscapes in there, and it's like, but sometimes that, because it's such wide open fields and you can see so much, like that's the problem. It's like because it's so open, you can see the pop-in of the foliage as you run along, which it can't isn't always super distracting depending on what foliage is popping in, but it's because you have that huge line of sight, where it's just like everything's so dense for the most part that you usually won't see that, or because there's just so much in the screen, you won't notice that, and because it's so colorful and vibrant, that it's like, okay, you don't notice like things like popping in or what have you. But yeah, it's just a great looking game. Yeah, I don't have any other notes. I'm trying to see here. I thought I put something down. Yeah, so I've been before we close out, I have been trying some energy drinks from Gorilla. Was it Gorilla Mind? Is the company, the brand? Derek from More Place More Dates. It's his energy drink. It's like an actually good one. Not like just proprietary blends and low dosed stuff that's like it has efficacy, but like if they just dose it at like low volumes where you don't get any benefit from it. So it's like it's actually a good energy drink. It's not just celebrities cashing in on that shit, like Prime or The Rock or whatever. But it's been really good. And I tried I did a short review on the Good Games Well Played YouTube channel on the reel for the Variety Pack 1. That I put that up like a while ago. I'm going to be recording the review for the Variety Pack 2 once I get my voice back more, and I'll put that up as well. And then I'll be putting up a actual video doing a full review of all of them together. So because you can only do like a minute on the YouTube shorts when you put them up on there. But those are there. But yeah, I really like them a lot. They're great. They're only 200 milligrams of caffeine, so nothing insane, especially for like a pre-workout or just to have as an energy drink, because there's a lot of the stuff they have in there is like great for mental clarity, stuff like that. A lot of properly dosed ingredients, which is nice, and I've been really enjoying them. But yeah, I should hopefully have that quick review up. I was hoping later today because it'd be a great time to record it, but we'll see how my voice is going to do.
Have you had the Celsius drinks? Because that's what we've been using, or we've been using as a like they're some kind of vitamin or something like that. That's the one we've been getting, and it seems pretty similar. It has a lot of like vitamins and like minerals and stuff in it. But the way that it's marketed, it's like supposed to help boost your metabolism and stuff like that. Sounds kind of similar. I was just curious if you had tried those two and how they compared.
No, they're not quite the same. This one looks like it's an energy drink that also has some like the benefits from tea, which do have some metabolic effects. That good. Now this is more fitness focused, and then with the mental clarity kind of tacked
like
on
the
there.
B12 and biotin and stuff in it.
No, let me find. I have a can.
I'm drinking one literally right now, so that's why I thought about it. I was like, oh, it seems similar to what this is, but if it's a different one, it might be, maybe we should try it too.
Yeah, no, this one has like well, I can list off the shit, but it won't it won't make any sense. But it has like a L-theanine, huperzine A,
okay,
saffron extract, uridine monophosphate, alpha GPC, and acetyl L-tyrosine. It's like, but in like proper quantities. And like I said, if well, anybody who's familiar with Derek from More Plates, More Dates knows that he covers it. And there's plenty of reviews on it, but like it's all properly dosed stuff. I would say it's probably overkill. Like I wouldn't say like it's like, oh, maybe try it out. Like it is kind of expensive because like I'm looking at Amazon right now and these are what a pack of 12 is $20 for your Celsius, but like I think a pack of 12 from Gorilla Mind is I think $30.
Is it more similar to like the powdered pre-workout stuff or like caffeine stuff?
Yeah, it'd be closer, to the like a pre-workout with the extra focus and mental clarity ingredients that actually have efficacy and in the proper. Whereas a lot of that stuff is missing from their actual pre-workout. This is more like an energy drink that can be used because it doesn't have like I'm blanking on like a beta alanine is a common ingredient for pre-workouts, which the effectiveness of it is hit or miss depending on what you do. Not great for weightlifting necessarily, more for like endurance sports, but there's no like beta alanine in Gorilla Mind. It's more of a lot of other stuff. So it's not quite exactly the same ingredients, whereas like the pre-workout's more tailored towards those folks. But I typically only take pre-workouts for the caffeine anyways.
Yeah, that's what I use it for.
Yeah, it's for it's great for that. It's like even though I haven't been able to like work out the past week because I've been dealing with the sick toddler, is I still like to take it in the morning because it's like, okay, because I don't drink caffeine otherwise, like I feel the effects of it really well, and again the flavors are great, and it's 16 full ounces, so it's a nice big can. It's only 10 calories. Some great flavors in Variety Pack 1, but yeah, I knew I wouldn't like Variety Pack 2 and as much, and I'll have that review up. But all right, okay, well we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. Oh, I also have real quick been uploading the podcast to YouTube on the Good Games Well Played. I haven't done any of the back catalog. I'm just putting up the most recent 2 episodes are up there. It's just a picture of the logo for the show and then the audio course with the timestamps that are on the podcast version in there as well. I know a lot of people, it's weird to me when I know YouTube isn't a primary source for a lot of people's podcast consumptions. Usually it's only if people do a video podcast, but I know are some people who have like YouTube Red or Premium, so they'll listen to YouTube's via that, especially if they have like Android and they don't want to use, like I don't use Spotify, so anytime end of the year Spotify, I'm like, I never use that service. It's like it's this huge service I just never use, but we post the podcast there, we host on like all the major stuff. I figured might as well just have it on YouTube just in case, I don't know. I don't think we'll get like new listeners in there because like the podcast iTunes is like the main one that people still use, but it's there. All right, well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. So thank you for all tuning in and listening. Thank you, Azad, for joining. And we'll see you all next time.
Bye.